Good day, C3 parents. I hope you can hear me now. I had a couple of difficulties. I am glad to be back. Just give me a few seconds so that I can just quickly share the new link to the page where it belongs so that the people can actually get to the right spot. I am super excited to be here. Tonight's topic is gender socialization, and just quickly fix this. Okay, just post it. All right, sorry about that. Please say hi in the comments if you're here. Please hit that like button. It really helps this channel quite a lot. If you hit the like button, some more people will actually get notifications that we're live. I hope that you guys can hear me. Let me know. Sorry about the technical difficulties. It is a new laptop, and I have tried. How's it, Catherine? I have tried to a new thing, and it kind of blew up in my face. Anyways, all right. So before we dive into the conversation, we are going to talk about the impact of socialization, like girl and boy, in the formative years, like the first 7, 8 years of their lives, and then after that, the impact in the long run. And but before we get to that part of the conversation, just a quick update. My studio is quite fairly like the bare minimum. The moment we've actually figured out what furniture I want, exactly how I've got an idea of what I want it to look like. I will share it on my Instagram as we go through the process of getting my studio right and ready. So I'm currently sitting in a loft space, and it is a very cluttered desk, a chair, and myself sitting here. There's no door, there's no soundproofing. So just bear with us if there's any sound issues. It's part of the big move, but we're happy, we're settled, and we can finally start streaming again, and we can finally start sorting out everything that we are doing. I see there's another person. Hello. All right, so let's dive into the conversation about gender socialization and what I mean with gender socialization. Now, it's been in the news often that some people kind of like go with the gender reveal parties, and it just like some people go a bit crazy and then they blow stuff up, or they blow other people up or buildings up, and will cause huge wildfires and things like that. Um, but gender socialization actually starts while the parent is still pregnant, because we celebrate that the kid either has a penis or a vagina, and there's this big celebration, and everything's either in pink or blue. Some of the more younger gender, like younger millennial and younger generations, actually opt for more neutral colors, gender neutral colors, because we are a bit more aware of gender socialization. Yet we still tend to, when it's a little girl that is expected, we tend to lean to the pink, and when it's the blue, we tend to lean to the blue. Now, when we look at the history of gender, all of that, um, not so long ago, it was actually in royal families, a baby boy was wrapped in pink. And pink was a color because it's a softer red. It was viewed as a color of power, and somehow that shifted now to becoming a girly color. Um, so that's one big question mark. Then dresses. If you really go look at the history books, and there's still cultures today where men wear dresses. Clothing is not a gender specific item, even though we are being socialized to believe it is. And that is what I'm going to talk about, how we socialize our kids into specific boxes, that makes it difficult for us sometimes to, we become rigid in how we view things. And then it becomes difficult for us when we deal with someone that does not fit into this socialized box. And then obviously someone that doesn't fit into the socialized box then have a struggle fitting into society. Now, what made me think of talking about this topic? Um, I think in the past 2, 3 weeks, that in various on social media, various parenting groups, there was this question about, if my kid does XYZ, will that influence their sexual orientation? And it hurts my heart that with all the science and all the conversations we've been having, that we still have parents that ask this question, and that means that the information have not been shared with them yet. We still have to do a lot more advocacy and a lot more conversations around this topic. I've got crude ways of explaining it, and I'll probably mention it a bit later, but the general thing of the general idea is, and you never see these postings, you will see a posting that says, oh, my son loves playing with dolls, or my son likes wearing dresses, or my son likes cooking, stuff that has been socialized into a direction that is a feminine role in the house or in society. Ironically enough, the best, well, the chefs, the most prominent chefs, the majority of them is male and not female. Um, so cooking and cleaning isn't necessarily something to do with the gender that you're born with. But we in society, we do that. Still walk up to today, we still walk into toy stores and you've got a pink section and you've got a blue section. And in the pink section, you've got bangles and you've got makeup and you've got an ironing board and you've got little kitchen stuff and you've got cleaning stuff and you've got dolls and all these so-called feminine roles the woman is supposed to aspire to live by. And then in the boys section, you've got cars and you've got stuff like blocks and things that you can take apart. Yes, finally they've moved Lego to its own separate section, but it's still very you get girly Lego and then you get boy Lego, because apparently only girls like pink and purple and white. And all the characters are very like it's marketed at girls. And society kind of tries to force us to think that this is a gift, or this is something that a girl will enjoy, or this is something that a boy will enjoy. Now, the reason I keep mentioning that, it's usually when a boy, especially under the age of 8, plays with things, was interested or fascinated with things that is viewed, due to social or gender socialization, viewed as a feminine role, that the question will come. And I'm going to put it a bit more politely, because some of them really use very harsh language when they ask the question, but they're scared that their kid will turn out gay. Now, if a toy has that magic ability, then all girls about who no parent has a question. No, you never see a question posted, listen here, my daughter prefers to play only with cars, or only likes to do um, construction things, or only likes to wield a hammer, or we don't post things like that when a girl does that, because under the age of 8 or like 13, be preteen, it is in a sense more okay for girls to play with things that is viewed within society that's more masculine. Um, so we've got this whole idea that it's okay for girls to wear pants because that's fine. A girl don't have to wear dresses all the time. They can explore a bit more, but young, if a boy does that, if they explore outside the confines that society has put down for their interest and where they are concerned, then we've got a problem. Then we have a situation where, oh, I'm so afraid that my child might be gay. Um, Now, I'm trying very hard to be compassionate and considerate, because I understand that there's a lot of people that have either a lack of knowledge and a lack of life experience to understand completely how the sexual orientation and that spectrum work. But here's the reality: kids or gender identity is fluid. And unless a toy or a piece of clothing is made for the genitalia area, it does not have a gender specific role. So, a piece of clothing, a way of acting, a way of playing, type of toy that your child is playing with will not determine to what kind of person your child will be biologically attracted to. But what it does have an influence in is on two different levels, and we start seeing it as our kids move into school. There was an experiment done a couple of years ago where they had a 6-month-old baby. Now, um, any person that looked at a 6-month-old baby, the way that you try to determine their gender is to look at what they're wearing. So they would take this little baby and dress the little baby in a dress and give the baby to someone to take care of. And this person, and put them in a room filled with toys. There's cars, there's blocks, there's puzzles, there's um, almost any kind of toy for that age range that you can think of. It's there. There is play food, and there's dolls, and there's all these. It's a massive variety of things that you can get through. And so the little baby is dressed in a dress. And immediately the caretaker will take the baby and start, "Oh, do you like the dolly? Do you enjoy playing with the dolly? Maybe we should have a little bit of a tea party." And then they play all these socialized feminine games with the baby. Then that person, like 5 minutes later, off they go. Baby gets dressed in blue clothing or boyish clothing and give it to another caretaker and say, "Oh, this is a little boy, 6 months old. Please look after the baby for 5 minutes for us." And then that person goes and it's cars that screech and blocks that gets built and puzzles and things that it's a bit more scientific, a bit more solution and problem solving oriented. And we can look at how look at the toy stores. It's literally divided in that way. The nurturing side is supposed to be the feminine side, and the scientific, the thinking side is supposed to be on the boy side. And we play with our kids that way. We're not always even focused, like we don't even realize we do that. I've met the most amazing 3-year-old, 4-year-olds, and 5-year-olds that regardless of the gender, that loves dinosaurs and can tell you about Elsa. And some of the boys can sing the Frozen songs, "Let It Go," almost better than Elsa. It is about how we socialize them, how we teach them to engage in the world, that we start teaching them a little box, that it's masculine or that it's feminine. And when our child look at that societal box and they decide, "But I don't, this is fascinating, but the other side fascinates me as well," then the question starts coming, especially if it's a boy. As our girls grow older, and it's interestingly enough, like I said, there's not that kind of pressure on girls necessarily, in the sense of, yes, as they grow older, when they hit their teenage years, like, you better start behaving like a girl now. You have to sit like this and you have to be quiet. There's other socialized gender socialization that happens. But when it comes to toys specifically and stuff that develops the brain, we limit girls in their brain development in the most crucial time period. The first 7 years of their life is the most crucial time period of brain development. And we limit the exposure to logical thinking, problem solving, um, and all those things. And then we've got this drive, high school and up. We need more women in the STEM directions, and we need um, more support. Then we want to motivate girls to be in the sciences and maths. But when we laid the foundation for the brain development, when we laid the foundation to where the little box is, or what gender role you're supposed to live out, we box them away from access to those kind of things. And we want parents, male parents, um, men that identify as male parents, to be involved and caring and nurturing and know how to change a diaper. And we want them to know how to cook at least a meal so that the other parent can have a day off. But in the first 7 years of their life, we taught them that you are less of who you are. You're a lesser person. Your identity is less than if you want to play with dolls or if you play with the food stuff. Well, the food stuff is not just a big thing, but if you want to iron or sweep, because that's a girl's job. That is not the way that boys should play. And do not wear dresses. And you cannot wear makeup. And you have to have your hair short. And it has to be in a certain way for you to fit into that box. And in this whole process, we start alienating kids as well. Instead of approaching gender identity as a process that where a child develops and tests out all the different things there is to explore and navigate in the world, and then decide or figure out where they fit, we kind of create a space where it's a either or. And if you do not fit according to your viewed or perceived biology in the box that we believe you should, you fall out of it. There are people that is gender non-conforming. Some days they feel a bit more girlish or a bit more feminine, and other days they feel a bit more masculine. And if you go and look at yourself, even as an adult, there are days that you feel a bit softer, and the standard feminine roles comes a bit freer in yours. And in some days, you feel a bit more masculine. It's a constant flow. No one person is consistently and constantly square in the box of their gender or given gender identity, or even what they feel as that their gender is. So toys is a problem, and we need to look at that. Clothing is a problem, and we need to really start realizing that the whole construct that clothing determines someone's sexuality or what their attraction would be is one of the biggest myths that you will ever get in society. It really, there's photos doing the rounds now. I wish I had legs like that. There's this man, he's cisgender, but he loves dresses and he loves skirts. And if you've seen those photos, I don't want him to wear skirts anymore, okay? Not because it makes me feel uncomfortable to see a man in a dress. He puts my legs to shame. My legs isn't as pretty as his. Anyway, so we need to start challenging those constructs, challenging those beliefs. When you hear someone say, but this is a girl's thing or this is a boy's thing, you can challenge them and ask them, but why? Then there is the emotional socialization. Big boys don't cry. And girls are more emotional. And being a boy mom means that my child is wilder and they break down stuff and they like you're not really raising a boy child if you haven't gone to the ER at least once or twice in their toddler years. And there's this constant negative feedback about if a child has this gender, they are supposed to behave in XYZ way. A little girl's not allowed to be loud or wild, or they need to be softer, quieter. But they're so emotional and they cry about everything. And the moment a girl expresses her emotions, it is immediately treated and immediately parented as if that emotional expression is problematic. She needs to tone it down, but at least she's allowed to talk about it. At least there's a bit more grace for her. But when a boy expresses emotions, and especially negative emotions, it's almost like where a girl's got space, like, okay, cry, but just don't let people see you cry. You almost like, but it's okay. You're allowed to feel this way. With a boy, it's boys don't cry. You need to be quiet. Stop crying or I'll give you something. Guys, I'm just going to interrupt myself. Guys, remember, we're not at the, please hit that likes. It really helps the channel. And while I'm gathering all my thoughts on this specific, important point, we've got this mindset that boys are tough and they're rough and tumble. And there's so many boys that isn't rough and tumble. And there's so many girls that is rough and tumble. Evening, Janine. There's so many boys and girls that is rough and tumble. We had a braai at our house, and this family came, and like a family with all girls, and we're a family with all boys. And we played, and it was so the kids played, and it was so funny. I've got very yes, they're boisterous, but they're not really rough and tumble kids to that degree. Where these girls were like my mom. I'm like I looked at the moms like, so how often do you go to the ER with them? My mouth hung open at how busy. Hi, Monica. How busy her kids were, and they were doing things with their bodies where I'm like, I don't think I can handle this tonight. Are we going to phone the ambulance today? Well, I hardly ever have those feelings when my kids are playing or exploring because my kids are just a bit more relaxed. So the whole thing that your gender determines the type of behavior that your child will definitely or must have is a pot of nonsense. We are socializing each other to have a specific expectation due to whatever genitals our kids are born with, and it's so harmful. We teach boys not to feel, not to deal with their emotions, not to acknowledge it. We don't teach them healthy coping mechanisms because that is what society, gender socialization expects of them. And we teach girls to be the nurturing one and to be the there's so much pressure on little girls to always be kind, always be courteous, always be this, these little perfect little dolls. If you wanted a child that is perfect and fits perfectly into your socialized gender role, go buy a doll and play dress up with them. Because no child will perfectly fit into a gender role. So, what's the outcome when we reach our teenage years? Obviously, early primary school, you see the vindictiveness. And here's the thing: we teach girls to use their words, but we're okay with boys to use their bodies when they're expressing negative emotions. So, standard, if a boy gets angry, chances are in primary school, whatever, if they really lose control over their negative emotions, they might end up punching someone or kicking someone. They'll get into a fight. What happens with the girls? We get vindictive with our mouths. We get vindictive with our tongues because that is how we learned how to manage our anger and how to wheedle, to thread that needle of harm, physical and emotional, is that is how we are gender socialized instead of being met at the point, taught how to deal with our negative emotions, and then to move forward regardless of our gender, being taught how to positively deal with our negative emotions so that we don't go and become verbally vindictive or physically assaulting someone when we're upset. In our teenage years, it even plays out further. And in our teenage years, when the early primary school, you start realizing they go through the opposite gender is icky, and then some kids stay with the opposite gender is icky, and some kids move like, the opposite gender is good. But those who stuck with the opposite gender is icky goes like, but the same gender is. And then there's some kids that goes like, none of the genders work for me. And then some kids go like, all of the genders work for me. And that's okay, and that is normal because sexual identity is also a fluid thing, but gender identity is also fluid. And as they grow older, you'll start seeing how they either say, stuff this, I'm not going to fit into this box and I'm not going to try anymore, or where they really try very hard, but they just don't do that. And I remember it's one of the most insulting things that for a very long time media did that especially with gender, and they conflated gender identity and sexual orientation. So if someone is homosexual or part of the LGBTQI plus community, and they play their role is that role, it's the gay best friend, and they're always very feminine, and they know more about clothing, and it's like a best girlfriend, and it is actually such a harmful stereotype. They are rugby players, guys, rugby players. um, I read an article the other day. There was either recently or is currently some of your super sport motorbike drivers, um, riders, not drivers, I say, riders, that is gay. It is brr, engines, but they're gay. And then there is straight hairdressers, male hairdressers. They just like working with hair. There is male school teachers, because teaching children is viewed as a very feminine socialized role. But there's male school teachers. There is female builders, and so the whole I'm frustrating myself. So the whole point of the conversation is to start where we start with our conversations with our kids. Yes, we often tell our kids, listen, you're technically you're a boy until you tell us differently. And there was a stage that we actually thought one of our kids is gender fluid. I still suspect he might be, or they might be gender fluid. But for now, they prefer to identify as a boy. However, he's he loves the feminine side of things. Very touchy feely, very free spirited, and not that boys are not free spirited, but or masculine identity is not free spirited, but there's an interest in the traditionally more feminine roles that our kid has. Doesn't matter, not at all. Will it determine what my kid does when they're an adult? Absolutely, in the sense of they will know how to cook, they will know how to clean, they will know how to do certain things, because we never socialize them as this is something that only boys are allowed to do, or this is something that only girls are allowed to do. You're allowed to feel your feelings. There's never a conversation that says boys is not allowed to cry, or um, there's a girl and she needs to be quiet, or those kind of conversations. And it starts when they're young. And they get to choose their favorite colors, and they get to choose their clothing, and we carry on with the choices that they make and how they go forward with life. How our lack of how our gender socialization impacts our children's career choices has a significant it really has a significant impact. In school, when a girl struggles with science or maths, chances for her to actually get a tutor to help her make it easier for her is actually lower than for a boy. Chances that boys struggle with maths or science is actually also lower, especially if they were in a privileged household where they had access to gender identified boys' toys. If a girl had only in her first 7 years mostly had access to gender identified female toys, chances that she might struggle, not she will definitely struggle, that she might struggle with things like maths and science, and struggling to put like three-dimensional thinking and all those kind of things, is because within the first 7 years of her life, she was gender raised or identified raised to not think in that way. And then they struggle in school. So girls, as they grow older, start falling out of that part of the schooling system, because it's they get socialized that it's not part of what a woman should do. When they need support, very few actually get the support that they need, because it's not believed either within their household or within their community that they're raised that a girl if you really struggle with maths, and if you struggle with maths and you're basically failing maths, and even you try very hard, or even if you're fascinated by it, you're still failing it. That's okay. Maybe you should rather go into cooking. Rather don't go do hotel and catering. Rather go do a subject that is softer. It's not so hard. Why do we need to spend money on a tutor because you're struggling with this section of the schoolwork? When with a boy, more often than not, the moment their grades start slipping, chances are that they will actually get access to a tutor and extra support much faster because it's socialized within us that maths and science and the engineering and those kind of jobs and those kind of thinking is a male gender or a masculine gender role to fulfill in society. If you guys have any questions or anything that you would like to add, you're welcome to add that. I think this is where my soapbox moment is going to end. I just want to give you guys a heads up for the next 2 months or so. We're going to do live feeds until at least until I have my studio that I can do proper recordings and like nice videos. So we're going to do that next week. Just something to look out for next week. Our live chat is going to be about parenting burnout. I wanted to talk about Mother's Day and I've got a love-hate relationship with Mother's Day. But I've decided that's a topic for a time and for a season when we're not in the Mother's Day season. I know I'm being weird. But next week we are going to chat a bit about parental burnout, and it's not going to necessarily be a self-care or a what do they call it now? I forgot the word. I had the word earlier today. Um, Man, it's not about self-care. Okay, it is about the realities of parental burnout. So come join the conversation. If you have anything to ask or anything to add, you're more than welcome to join us. It's really great seeing everybody listening. Thank you for the likes. If you watch this after I've like this live, please feel free just to type in hashtag replay. I really appreciate that. Remember to hit the like button. If you're not subscribed to the channel, remember to subscribe. It really helps us out. And guys, have a blessed day. And I'll see you again next week. It is awesome being back. Stay safe, wash your hands, and wear your mask.